Oh no, oh no. Oh no, I'm becoming you, Foxy. Oh no. Hi. Wow, look, it's me. I'm here and I'm streaming a whole minute late. Time to get gay? Yeah, it is time to get gay. It's always time to get gay. Let's gay it up. Or gay down to it. Oh my god. Guys, I'm so tired. But hi, we're gonna read this book because I said I would. And because I rescheduled it today from tomorrow, so we're here now. But here's the thing, this next chapter is looking quite like something. Also, my view bridger isn't working, so if there's weird things happening with the tracking, ignore it. Yeah, see, it's my mouth tracking is absolute ass right now, so we're just gonna have to deal with it. All right. Gay down to it is a sentence that was said this day. It is. It'll be said again. Why is my bitrate down so much? What the fuck? Hello? Twitch, are you okay? I mean, hello? I don't know what that does. I hope it doesn't fuck things up too much. Unstable connection. Wow, you know what? What if I just can't even stream today? Hey, how come on this place it says excellent connection, and then on Twitch it says unstable connection? Huh? What's this going on here? Foxy, am I lagging? Am I lagging? What the hell is even going on here? What the hell is even going on here? Not really? Maybe it's just lying to me. God. Why do people and things lie to me? That's so rude, honestly. That is just very rude. Anyway, let's read a book. Oh, what happens. Let's at least try, you know? Let's try at least. It's really, like, it looks fine, but it just says unstable connection, and my OBS is fine and everything, so I don't know what's going on with it. Anyway, we're on chapter 59. A little choppy with the movements occasionally, but the voice is coming through. Yeah, okay. That's fine then. Whatever. We'll deal with it. What was I saying? We're on chapter 59 on page 283 of Remnants of Filth, Vol.2. Wow! I have a question. Was there ever a time when page numbers were at the bottom of the page? Because I feel like I'm always looking for at the bottom of the page for a page number. Is that a thing? Or am I just crazy? Because they're all at the top of the... I might be crazy. My tea is too hot to drink right now, so let's just get started. 10 chapters from the nicest chapter of them all? What does that mean? Oh. Fair enough. I'm Misago. No way. You've seen books with it at the bottom? Okay, good. I'm not crazy. I mean, I am, but not for that reason. Okay. Anyway, let's read. And reading voice activated. Gumong's eyes flew open, blue irises shining wet in the darkness. The tent was quiet. His chest was heaving violently and his back was soaked with sweat. He could hear his own heartbeat pounding loudly in the silent night. He swallowed. What had he just dreamed? The last thing he saw was Moji pushing him down and capturing his lips with his own, that searing heat as contrary to its customary coolness as night from day. Gumong could almost feel that overpowering emotion rushing forth from the dream to drown him in its wake. Damn! But what was that feeling? He didn't understand. He only felt that it was shockingly warm and terrifyingly strong, so much so that it could pass from his dreams and into his waking mind, making his heart pound and his blood surge. His blood surging, alright, surging to one place, one area. Uh-oh, uh-oh. It was too sweet and too dangerous. Gumang unwittingly reached up to touch his mouth. I read that differently. Anyway, he turned over. Moji was sitting on a chair by the bed, his head tilted to the side, fast asleep. His face was markedly different from the one Gumang had glimpsed in his dream. The man before him no longer looked as young or as impulsive, or even as sincere. Time had not taken that elegant beauty of his features. Taken the elegant beauty of his features, but it had stripped away his carefree youth and naive honesty. As Gumang gazed at him, he recalled the words Moji had said to him at their first meeting. "We used to know each other." Gumang hadn't taken him seriously then, but now, confusion swelled in his heart. Had they truly known each other once upon a time? It seemed that they used to be very close. They'd laughed with their arms slung around each other's shoulders and rolled about in the same bed. They're gay. The Moji in his dream had just been like Fando. He didn't think Gumang dirty at all. What the fuck? Meat bun! I hate her. Was any of that real? At the very end, their lips touched so intimately, he didn't know what it meant. But at the thought of that sensation, his heart felt so warm, though the heat was not without pain. He was genuinely curious about this feeling. After their lips met, what would happen next? He longed to know, but the dream had ended, and he couldn't remember more. Gumang blinked his blue eyes. He genuinely didn't know what to make of these subtle nuances. In the end, he leaned over the edge of the bed. He hesitated for a moment, but eventually he reached out with great curiosity to touch a fingertip to Moji's pale lips. Boy! How strange. Why were they cool to the touch? They had been warm in the dream. Maybe the dream hadn't been real. Before he could finish the thought, he saw that Moji had woken at his touch, his lashes fluttering minutely as his eyes drifted open in the candlelight. But he was not fully awake. His eyes were still unfocused as he turned his hazy gaze on Gumang. He saw that Gumang was touching his mouth, so he grew convinced he was still dreaming. He sighed, almost sorrowfully, and took hold of Gumang's hand. Pulling it to his lips, he kissed it softly. "Shishong, I dreamt of you again. Only in dreams you would keep from angering me. Only in dreams would you be like this, behaving and staying by my side." Those soft, cool lips brushed against the back of Gumang's hand. Moji bowed his head, as if choked up. Gumang stared at him, dazed. Never, since they had first met, had this man been so vulnerable and gentle. Gumang didn't understand why the sight of him like this would fill his heart with grief. Why did it hurt so much? Just yesterday, this person had struck him, chased him off, and called him dirty, but he felt that something wasn't right. That they didn't actually feel this way. The two of them shouldn't be like this. Gumang hesitated. "I dreamt of you," he whispered. Moji blinked in surprise, then raised his head. The candlelight and the shadow had shrouded them in a haze that was fast dissipating. Moji's startled eyes slowly focused and sharpened. Gumang watched the confusion and tenderness in his eyes retreat, exposing an expanse of shock and pain. Moji abruptly let go of Gumang's hand. He was awake. He jumped to his feet and stared at Gumang for a spell. His face turned many colors, but he didn't immediately speak. Hand pressed to his forehead, he closed his eyes for a long while before gritting out, "Don't take that seriously. I wasn't fully awake. I dreamt of you," Gumang interrupted. Moji had thought he was talking about some random dream and hadn't paid much attention, but seeing him bring it up a second time, he paused. What did you dream about? Gumong knelt on the bed, looking up at the much taller man in front of him. His gaze swept nakedly across Moji's lips before it finally returned to his dark eyes. I dreamt that you weren't as sad as you are now. You were warm. You were smiling. Moji said nothing. You called me Sugar. Moji's pupils shrank. With trembling fingertips, he grabbed the back of Gumong's hand, forcing him to look straight ahead, to look only at him, to offer up all his expressions to his eyes alone. His voice was shaking and terribly hoarse. What did you say? You were young, so was I. We were together in a tent. After a moment's thought, Gumong said softly, You came of age. I kept you company. Moji's face was terrifyingly pale. Gumong softly repeated the words he'd remembered, through youth and into adulthood. Moji suddenly felt as if he'd been shot through by lightning. A shudder coursed through his whole body. All his blood rushed to his head, the furious tide dimming his vision and turning his limbs ice cold. His eyes were horribly bright, his expression dark and frightening. He seemed on the verge of being torn into desperate fragments by the relentless rapids. Was Gumong starting to remember? Was this the first recollection he'd regained? I'll stay with you. Moji took a step back. He should have felt astonished or even relief, but he never thought he'd hear these words of endearment from the past so unexpectedly. He thought he'd never hear anything like that again. He thought he'd never hear anything like that again. He thought he'd rely on the few pitiful memories he'd possessed to keep the anguish at bay all his life. How could Gumong just say that? Those bygone words felt like a hammer smashing into his chest. He doubled over almost unconsciously. A sentence so simple had battered this invincible man until he could hardly stand. He sank heavily back into the chair and buried his face in his hands, unable to say a word. He had slapped Gumong before, but Gumong saying these words was more than enough to break his heart. Wow. Gumong washed over him. He had originally wanted to ask, was that only a dream? Or did I finally remember some of the past? But no matter how ignorant Gumong might have been, he still understood when he saw Moji's reaction. It was real. The two of them had really shared moments like that when they had been young and fearless, moments which were now left behind in their past. It's a scene break, kind of. It's a gap. That night, Moji fled stumbling from the tent. Over the next 2 days, he seemed to avoid Gumong deliberately. Before, Moji would look at him with cold disdain. Now, it seemed like he was incapable of facing him calmly. Gumong tried, haltingly, to ask him about what he'd remembered, but Moji refused to be alone with him. The instant he saw him, he walked away. Moji genuinely didn't know how to face Gumong. He wasn't sure exactly how much Gumong had remembered. Was it just the first half of that night, or all of the absurd things that followed? He wanted to ask, but he didn't dare. Besides, what was the point in asking? The relationship was already shattered, with no possibility of repair. What was the point in gathering those scraps of tenderness and compounding his own heartbreak? The ribbon of heroes still lay across his brow. How could he forget the debt of blood that Gumong owed Chonghua? And so they journeyed on like this, in silence. On the third day, they finally arrived at the soul-calling abyss. It was a fathomless ravine, neither its beginning nor its end visible to the eye. Rushing waters flowed within its depths, surging powerfully from east to west. The troops arrived at daybreak, as the dawning sun pierced the dark night and ascended solemnly from the horizon. Golden light, brilliant, but not blinding, spilled across the continent of the 9 provinces. The emperor sat astride a fine snow-white steed with green, with golden wings. With his stirrups flashing gold and his long robes as a piercing white, he rode at the head of the imperial army. Behind him, the entire noble entourage dismounted in succession. As the first rays of dawn illuminated the gold trim of their robes, these noble scions made for a lofty and magnificent sight. The master of ceremonies cried, "Offer the sacrificial lotuses!" An attendant from each noble family had received an ever-bright flower lantern lit with whale oil, which they now passed into their lord's hands. These lanterns represented the martyred heroes of each family. The lords cupped their lanterns in their hands and followed the emperor to the edge of the soul-calling abyss. Muronglian, Yurjuntian, Moji. These heads of Chenghua's noble clan stepped forward, one after another, clad in robes woven with sapphire blue bats, snowy white hatchets, and pitch-black soaring snakes. Each clan's ceremonial regalia was opulent and stunning. Just one of those insignia-patterned damask robes was awe-inspiring in isolation, but now all of these supremely powerful noble families were lined up in a row, their long trains and wide sleeves fluttering in the wind. The golden trim at their hems gleamed, lavish and beautiful. It was nothing if not majestic. "Kneel!" shouted the master of ceremonies. The entourage fell to its knees like a great wave, becoming a tide of multicolored fabric, limned in gold. Hey, hang on, what is that? What does that mean? Limned? Limned? What does that mean? Oh my god, my mouth tracking is so bad today. What the fuck? It might be because one of my lamps is not on. Hang on a second. Is it a typo? I don't know. Like, shouldn't it be line or something? Oh, okay. It is a typo then. My mouth tracking gonna be a little bit. No, it's just really bad today. That's just how it is. Yay! Okay. Lower the lanterns. Moji and the others released the flower lanterns into the abyss. These lanterns were enchanted with a spell of weightlessness, so the twinkling lights fell softly down to drift upon the abyssal waters. The sun broke through the sky, setting the heavens and earth alight. The family heads bent down on one knee, and the exorcising soul song resounded across the firmament. Our sons went forth with swords held brave, their blood and bones in distant grave. Last year this self was yet intact, last night this body spoke and laughed. Your loyalty I safely keep, your valiant deeds I freely speak. For when these heroes' souls come home, throughout the land shall peace be known. The notes of this song echoed for an age as uncountable motes of glimmering light floated up from the depths of the soul-calling abyss. It was said that they were the fragments of consciousness the deceased heroes had left the world. Responding to the offerings of their kin, they rose into endless golden light. Gumong watched the scene and heard the sustained notes of the eulogy. He watched those known and named flower lanterns drift down, the Yue clan souls, the Mo clan souls, the Murong clan souls. All these dead had people to remember them. They were remembered over and over again in the sounds of the soul-calling song carved into their families' hearts. But there seemed to be trapped in his heart some other humble names. Though he could no longer recall them, they seemed, at this moment, to pummel him like the surf. Those names were largely inelegant and simple. Some were no more than a surname paired with a number. They bespoke a sense of lowliness. There were too many of them echoing sorrowfully in his head, as if an army of fallen nameless soldiers were calling to him from beneath the abyss, rebuking him, blaming him. General Gu, General Gu, you said if we call you General Gu, you would lead us out of hell. You said you'd bring us home, you'd give us a name. You lied. Not even you can remember our names. Not even you remember who we were. Our broken limbs have rotted. Our spilled blood has dried. We left nothing behind. Is there a soul lantern for unnamed heroes? One to guide us back to the homeland we once protected, to see our old friends, to see the mountains and rivers of our nation. General Gu, General Gu, my name is. His ears were buzzing, the rims of his eyes red. Gumong gasped for air but couldn't breathe. In his daze, he saw countless corpses crawling out of the abyss, their blurred faces surging toward him. Gumong? The last thing he heard was a quiet note of alarm from the captain beside him. He wanted to respond, but something was caught in his throat. He was choking on those forgotten names that had come to demand his life. In his confusion, he clearly heard a rousing bellow of fury. It was his own voice splitting the sky from some battle in the past. Come on, if you're not dead yet, get up. You called me General Gu. If you're dead, If you're dead, I'll raise a gravestone for you. If you live, I'll take you home. Get up. That blood-soaked voice stabbed into his heart. He felt shame, he felt agony. He felt the sorrow and dissatisfaction of breaking a promise. Gumong clasped his hand to his brow, his ears ringing. At last, pain splitting his head, he crumpled and collapsed into the dirt. Oh, that's the end of the chapter. Damn. Are we gonna get a flashback? No, not even. Holy shit. Oh my god. Okay. Guys, I'm not gonna lie, I am still not awake yet. My brain is still not awake. I'm probably only gonna read one more chapter. And that'll be that, because I'm already struggling as I am, so that's how it is. That's the way the cookie crumbles. Jesus. It's okay. Don't cry. Don't cry. Or do. I don't care. I don't care. I can't hear it. Let me just stretch for a bit. I even had caffeine and it's not working. It's not like I actually got a lot of sleep, so that might be the way the thing that is like that. Where is my headband? There it is. I need like never mind. Never mind. I don't have words. Okay, chapter 60 is called Lost Souls. Lost Souls. Wow. We are on page 293. Gumong remained unconscious for almost a week. During this time, he dimly sensed that he was lying in the carriage. Sunlight streamed through the pale curtains, and Moji sat warily by his side. Now and again he'd recall some fragmented and disorganized scenes, some involving Moji, some full of the indistinct faces of soldiers. They were laughing and joking, wine splashing as their cups clinked. At times, the sound of someone calling him General Gu would flash through his mind, or Moji's soft murmur of Shishong. In his dreams, that sacrificial soul-calling song hung in the air like willow fuzz, never dissipating. Our sons went forth with swords held brave, their blood and bones in distant graves. Last year this self was yet intact, last night this body spoke and laughed. It seemed as if those men, whose bones had long been lost and surrounded him just yesterday, watching him hold forth on worldly ideals, listening to him expound passionately on how even slaves could have ambition, could have a future. Those admiring, enthusiastic, faithful faces Oh, that's a weird sneeze. Oh, okay. Why couldn't he remember them? Those names he had carved into his heart by reading the slave registry. Those names that no one would spare a second glance amid the sea of people. Why couldn't he remember them? Had he forgotten everything? But the shame remained. What? No, he had forgotten everything, but the shame remained, tormenting him beyond endurance. Your loyalty I safely keep, your valiant deeds I freely speak. He didn't dare keep listening. For when these heroes' souls come home. But his people couldn't return, his brothers couldn't return, they were nameless, lonely souls and wild ghosts, bleeding and decapitated. Jesus Christ. They couldn't find their way home. His heart hung fiercely, he couldn't breathe. The names of his fellow soldiers that he once strove to memorize crowded into his chest. They were about to tear his heart apart, about to drive him insane, as if he were about to drown beneath that pile of dead souls. He cowered, sobbing. Don't hate me. I tried. I really did try. Please forgive me. Please don't enlist in your next life. I hope you'll be born into nobility and enjoy a lifetime of gambling and games. I'm begging you. In the next life, please don't serve under a general like me. I'm no use. I'm too naive. I'm too stupid. I was really too stupid. I was the one who caused you all to die in vain. I was the one who wasn't strong enough and doomed every last one of you. Please. Please. Gumong sobbed before this horde of shadows in his dream. He suddenly caught sight of someone's silhouette in the crowd, someone tall and brash, boldly arrogant and forever brilliant. This man turned back to smile at him. Gumong's heart burned, and a forgotten name emerged from somewhere deep within. He knelt in the dreamscape, a cry tearing itself from his throat. Jianxing! Lu Jianxing grinned, but he didn't say a word. He only blinked before turning away to vanish among the coursing tide of souls. Gumong watched to chase... What the fuck? Gumong wanted to chase after him, wanted to grab him and hold him back, wanted to say many things to him. But like every other dead soul, Lu Jianxing, too, disappeared in the end. A vast darkness descended like a torrential rain. In this unending night, Chenghua's soul-calling song was a soft, lilting refrain, mourning the souls who could never return. I just spilled tea on myself. Yay. Oops. Anyway. Our sons went forth with swords held brave, their blood and bones in distant grave. Last year their self was yet intact. Last night this body spoke and laughed. Within the dreamscape, Gumong fell to his knees and curled into a ball. Hoarse, garbled cries issued from his throat. He was calling for his friends, his soldiers, the perseverance and passion he'd risked everything for. In the fog of remembrance, someone took his hand and stroked his hair, trying to console him in soft whispers. Don't cry, they murmured. Gumong, don't cry. He didn't know who this person was. He only felt that their hand was so warm and so strong. They held on to his hand like they were trying to drag him ashore out of that sea of dead souls. Gumong sobbed. He grabbed that hand, vaguely recognizing from the faint scent of their skin that this was someone safe to trust. He held it in a death grip, fastening his fingers around theirs with all his might. They can't come back, he wailed. None of them can come back. All because of his birth, his people, his soldiers, would never get to hear. For when these heroes' souls come home, throughout the land shall peace be known. None of them could return. Why was I the only one left behind? Gumong wept desperately, clutching that hand as if grasping at straws, barely able to form words. Why do you have to push me so far? Why? Why? Amid the turmoil, that person tightly held his hand, so tightly, so forcefully, as if as if with this kind of strength he could say the quiet words he could never again voice. I'm still here. You still have me. I'll stay with you. Gumong remained in this unconscious stupor until the 5th day. Only then did he finally struggle free of that dream and into wakefulness. Lashes quivering, he slowly opened his eyes. They had long returned from the soul-calling abyss. The memorial ceremony was over. He lay on a spacious bed covered in a thick fox fur blanket. Watch out, Foxy. A thin cloud-patterned curtain the color of ink hung around him, and through it he could see a luxuriant light beyond the window and the crackling fire within the room. This was Jiha Manor. He had returned to Jiha Manor. Gumong pulled himself up and reached out to draw the curtains aside. He sat on the big bed, gathering himself for a while. He was drenched in sweat, the terror and grief of his dream still fresh. He stared blankly into the burning coals, mumbling the name he had remembered. Jiangxing, Lu Jiangxing. He remembered that Lu Jiangxing was his brother, but he couldn't recall anything else. He didn't know where they had met or why Lu Jiangxing had left. His brain was like a wrung-out cotton cloth, and he was unable to squeeze even the slightest bit more from it. There had also been those many silhouettes from the dream. His army. He used to have an army, didn't he? Gumong clutched his broken head as he sat on the edge of the bed. He had never before felt so bewildered and vexed. The door to this side room suddenly creaked open. Li Wei walked in with sweets and medicine. At the sight of Gumong sitting up with his head in his hands, staring into space, he exclaimed, "Aya, you're awake!" Gumong made a quiet noise of assent. "Since you're awake, take your medicine." Li Wei placed the wooden tray beside him. "Look, 2 bowls, one for fever and one to calm the heart." Oh, that's so sweet. I thought it was just gonna be the other medicine, but no, he's actually taking care of him. Why am I crying? What the fuck? Gumong shot a wary glance at those 2 bowls of strong medicine, but his attention was drawn to a small celadon? Celadon? Is that how it is pronounced? Plate beside them. Celadon. Upon this plate were 2 pale pink flour cakes. Ooh. Made of rose petals and glutinous rice flour, their skin was translucent and soft. The sweet red bean filling faintly resembled within. I'm a known crier. Oh my god. Li Wei saw the direction of his glance and laughed. The Lord ordered the Lord ordered these preparations for you. You've been very weak these past few days. Every sip of medicine would make you throw up. But with the flour cakes, to take away a little of the bitterness, at least you can still drink it. The Lord? Gumong blinked, pausing. Moji? Li Wei's smile became a glare. Impudent. Is the Lord's name something you can use? Come now. He continued. Take your medicine. Gumong didn't have the energy to bicker with him. Besides, the lingering vestiges of that dream had left his mind a jumble. He obediently accepted the medicine. One bowl was unbearably bitter, and the other was unbearably spicy. Holding his nose, Gumong gulped them both down. The instant he was done, he smacked his lips and shoved a flour cake into his mouth. It was especially soft, perhaps so he could swallow it even if unconscious. With only a few bites, it melted in his mouth like snow. Eee. What is it? Dok? Glutinous rice flour, right? It's just dok. Yummy. What am I looking for? That's the end of the page. What am I looking for? Yeah, glutinous rice flour. Anyway, red bean filling. Hell yeah. I want that! Oh, I could have gotten that yesterday, couldn't I have? I gotta go back. Okay. After eating one cake, Gumong looked up and licked his lips. What about him? Li Wei stared at him. Who? Is he not here? Only then did Li Wei realize Gumong was asking about Moji. With helpless amusement and exasperation, he admonished, That's my lord, or Zhihejun, to you. How many times have I taught you the rules? He paused a little curious. Why are you asking after the lord? Is there something you need to discuss with him? Gumong nodded. I'm giving him the other flour cake. I don't know why I'm surprised. I don't know why I didn't see that coming. Oh my goodness. Li Wei stopped laughing. Of course the Lord wouldn't eat something like this. Why would you save it for him? Gumong thought it over. Ever since he remembered Moji's coming of age, some indescribable emotion would flare and flutter in his heart whenever he thought of him. I live in his territory, so I should give it to him. Li Wei stroked his chin and with interest and muttered, Strange. Is this about wolf pack ranking? Is the beta wolf trying to win favor with the alpha? What alpha? He was interrupted by a deep, cold voice from behind him. Yee! Li Wei turned to see Moji striding into the room in a full set of black military robes. Oh wait, that was Moji saying that. What alpha? Nothing, he said guiltily. My lord is back from court? Why so early today? It's almost the new year. Things have been fairly quiet. Moji glanced at Gumong, who was still sitting up in the bed. Without turning to look at Li Wei, he said, You may leave. I'll speak to him alone. The carved wooden door opened and closed as Li Wei left. Moji walked to the side of the bed and pulled up a chair. You, Gumong hesitantly began. Moji reached out to feel his forehead before he could finish. This man had touched him plenty of times before, grabbing his chin, pushing him against walls, and so forth and so on. So what was a mere touch on the head? Yet somehow, that organ in his ribcage seemed to skip a beat. He suddenly felt a little nervous. What's happening? Your fever's gone. Moji hadn't noticed the slight oddness in Gumong's manner. He lowered his hand, his features cool and indifferent as ever. Tell me then, what else have you remembered these past few days? Gumong wavered. I haven't. You'd best not lie to me, Moji said. Only then did Gumong notice the dark smudges beneath Moji's eyes, clearly the result of long nights spent without sleep. I've been at your side nearly the entire time. I already hear most of what you said in your sleep. That's pretty gay. Pretty freaking gay. Gumong fell silent. Moji tilted his fair and elegant face, waiting expressionlessly for Gumong's response. He thought for a moment. I don't know. It was just bits and pieces of things. Moji didn't reply. He seemed to be suppressing some emotions, but whatever it was broke past his restraint and could no longer be held back. His eyes flicked up, that knife-like gaze piercing right into Gumong's chest, as if wanting to flense him open? Flesh to blood. What does flense mean? What does flense mean? As he fixed Gumong with a hunter's glare, Moji ground his teeth and said, I heard you call his name. Gumong blinked. Moji's next words seemed to have been crushed between his teeth, carrying an indescribable burden of dissatisfaction and hatred. And though Gumong couldn't be sure, he thought he sensed a twinge of jealousy. You can't forget him, after all, Moji said stormily. You can't forget Lu Danxing, can you? Flents mean to strip the blubber or skin from a whale, seal, or other animal after it has been killed. Interesting. That's the end of the chapter. What the fuck? What the fuck? These chapters have ended on the end of the page, so I turned the page expecting more words, and then it's blank. What the fuck? Who is Lu Danxing? Who is Lu Danxing? I don't know. But I'm too tired to read the next. They changed how the format been done between books. No, it's just... No, because the chapter ends on the, like, last line of the page. My goodness. My goodness gracious. Yes, it has only been 44 minutes, but I am not capable to read anymore today, even though I really want to know what the fuck is going on. What the fuck is going on here? But yeah, my brain is still not awake, so... That's where we're leaving off today, I guess. Oh my god. This was a very silly reading stream. Hopefully next week, my sleep isn't so fucked up. But, alas, this is what happens when you switch your sleep schedule in the span of, like, 5 days. So, my brain is still catching up with how to exist. 45-minute stream as a PM, everyone. This is so stupid. I hope you, enjoyed regardless. But yeah, I'll be back at the proper time next week. I'll actually have a stream schedule next week, so we'll be doing that. And yeah, I'll actually be not streaming, but I'll be on a stream. I'll be on Sky stream later for her birthday stream. Yay! Sky Glubs. At Sky Glubs. But yeah, I mean, just in case you want to watch. Anyway, I will take my leave and maybe try to wake up more. So until we meet again, I bid you adieu. And good night and goodbye. What? Bye. I'll see you later. Bye.